Let the record show that the Plaquemines Parish Port, Harbor, and Terminal District meeting began at 3:03 PM. The machines are open for roll call. Let the record show that 8 of 9 commissioners are present. We'll start with the opening prayer by Commissioner Jurisic.
We take this moment to acknowledge Almighty God and thank Him for our bountiful blessings, especially for the parish's natural resources. We give thanks to God for our brave and courageous men and women in our military who daily risk their lives to protect our precious freedom, and we pray for our world leaders to know how to obtain world peace. We pray that this government body, comprised of both council and administration, will always serve our parish with honesty, humility, and equality to all. And as this government body gathers here today, we pray for the wisdom to know right from wrong and the courage to do which is right. Amen.
Amen.
And we'll be led in a prayer by Commissioner Jurisic. The pledge.
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Brian, you want to just take your job?
Yeah, and I'll hand over the meeting. It was a test. Kim, next item.
2, executive session. Discussion of ongoing litigation under LRS 4217A2 PPHTD versus State of Louisiana, DOTD, and Plenary Infrastructure Bell Chase LLC, docket number C731886, Section 31, 19th Judicial District Court, Parish of East Baton Rouge, State of Louisiana, Commissioner Schultz.
I'd like to defer this until our attorney shows up. He's stuck in traffic, and move on to item number 3, please.
3, status report by the Executive Port Director.
So, good evening and happy belated Father's Day.
I'm coming.
The light's on. Can you hear me? Yes, sir. Okay, so happy belated Father's Day to all of the fathers here, on the Port Commission. You can't hear me?
Yes.
Oh, and myself, thank you very much. And also to all of the fathers in the room. So I had the opportunity to take a few days off and spend some time with my father, and I'm refreshed and glad to be back in the saddle. Just kind of an update on Baton Rouge. Obviously, I think everybody received the update on the 2 Senate bills that are out there, and myself and the Port's executive staff, we remain poised to get ready to go to work with our state legislators and representatives. Last week, we did complete the legislative audit for the Ports of Louisiana. That was an audit, a legislative audit that came as a result of these 2 bills, where the Legislative Audit Office wanted to gather more details about all of the 34 Louisiana ports. So we did complete that last week. That's another thing that's off our plate now. Washington, D.C. update. We continue to seek up to the $50 million to support the redoing of the Point Celeste pump station. We're hoping to start seeing those funds in 2024. But I would like to note that kind of as a stopgap measure, Venture Global will be deploying 2 smaller pumps. They're portable pumps, and they will be in place, I think, as early as next week. And there's a discussion about even another set of pumps that could come in next year as a stopgap until we can have that pump station fully functional. And I just want to, reiterate from the port, we recognize that we're driving a lot of growth. We're driving a lot of expansion. And, on our safety and security side of the house, we're spending a lot of time energy and efforts in making sure that we are prepared for the future storms that we know that are going to come our way. Project updates. I think I'd like to start off with Sustainability Partners. I know this was a very contentious topic during the last council meeting, and I would like to state that the port will provide a redacted digest of the contract that we have on the table today, and we will provide that as soon as possible, as soon as we can get a complete legal buy-off on what we release. There's some customer-sensitive information in there that we want to make sure that we protect, but we will provide this document, to the community. I'd like to try to do it within the next week or two. But I also want to talk about, what this vote today represents. Okay, essentially what we're looking to do is request permission to proceed forward with the Sustainability Partners contract to further the progress with developing the intellectual property, which is the permits and the drawings for the rail connection. I mean, that's really what we're looking for. That's what's included and what's on the table. What's not included is any type of construction or commitment to even move forward with building the rail. To date, we have already spent, or there's already been an allocation of $5.7 million from Sustainability Partners under a concession agreement concept to develop 50% design of this rail asset, which would become, the permits would actually become intellectual property for the port. So that $5.7 million that's been deployed so far to date, has not, and I say again, it has not completed the 100% design. So the estimate to complete the 100% design is $8 million. That's the next two phases, phase 3 and 4. So what we're asking to do is to amend the contract just to complete the design. So once we complete the design, the port will end up with the intellectual property, the design, the permits to build this rail. At that point, when we have the completed design, our immediate next step will be to reach out to each council member to ask for town hall meetings and to start having, community meetings so that we can lay all of the possible plans on the table for the community to have some input on what we do and moving forward, or what we not do. So this vote today does not commit us to building the rail. The vote today basically allows us to finish that intellectual property so that we actually have the final permits to get us to that next step. I think there's a couple of other things that I'd like to talk about that's in this vote. One, it completely removes the project manager, LA 23, from all aspects of the permitting and design for this rail intellectual property, and it replaces LA 23 with Infinity Engineering. The amendment also, based on what we renegotiated, provides the port with an off-ramp, where if we so choose to pull out of this agreement today, we know what that off-ramp cost is. If we so choose to go ahead and complete the project at the estimated $8 million and not move forward with the concession agreement, the construction and so forth, then it gives us the opportunity to have an off-ramp then as well. If we choose to continue with the full concession agreement, as soon as the permitting, the design and engineering are complete, then we have the option to roll that right into the construction at the point when that construction is approved by this council. And the last thing that's included in this agreement is we do have some clarifying verbiage in the service addendum that, our council worked very closely with Sustainability Partners Council to make it very clear that this is in fact a true concessionary agreement. I'd like to just close that with, there is no commitment in this vote today to build a rail. I would also like to clarify to this council that we are evaluating this rail connectivity very, very closely and comprehensively. And if I give a recommendation for us to move forward, it will be because, we put the time in to align ourselves as port staff and as commission with input from the community and from the parish. And I would also like to state that I do believe that a container terminal for Plaquemines Port it's a great opportunity to put Plaquemines Port on the map in the Gulf of Mexico as the largest container port in the Gulf of Mexico. That opportunity is there for us. But if we're going to do that, I want to make sure that we do it right and that the infrastructure for the rail and for the road can support what we're doing. And if we don't have that, then I'm not going to have a recommendation, to build a container port. But what I will say is I think we should look very closely at this rail opportunity, because even if we do not build a container port, there are a lot of other opportunities that we're actually looking closely at now that could also use this rail. And then I'd like to close with, we are continuing to work very closely with Jefferson Parish. We have a meeting that was scheduled by President Cynthia Lee next week to sit down and talk about the Peters Road bypass and the Walker Road bypass. It is imperative that we continue to work very closely with Jefferson Parish to make sure that everything that we're doing here in Plaquemines Parish is aligned with that project. And that covers Sustainability Partners. Okay. Yeah. The next item on my list would be my recommendation to the council for the Point Lahash ferry landing on the West Bank. We've done our comprehensive review, and it is my recommendation to this council that we replace that West Bank ferry launch landing, and that we also replace the landing on the East Bank side simultaneously. At a high order of magnitude, it is likely to cost about $15 million, in which we are working very diligently already to find the funding to make this happen. We have some of the funding in place, and I want to really point out that we looked at three factors that were really kind of helped us to come to this conclusion. Because when we looked at a $3.9 million operating loss, from a business point of view, we had to sit down and look at, okay, can we really sustain, losing $3.9 million per year moving forward? We sat down through 5 different town hall community meetings, which I'm not sure if the parish has ever done as many town hall meetings back to back. We had a lot of dialogue about, the need for 2 ferries versus 1 ferry. And I think the community spoke loud and clear here on the East Bank and in Port Sulphur that the ferry system here really supports their way of life. So that was one factor. The other factor is, we're driving growth. We have the opportunity today to move ourselves from about the number 11th tonnage port in the United States to up to around the number 5 tonnage port in the United States. That's a big move, and to look at that type of growth and not be looking at expanding transportation routes would be a little short-sighted. So we recognize that not only is it required, we have to make it better. And lastly, I mean, we are focused on safety, and we are considering, public evacuation routes, and we want to make sure if there's anything that we can do in our power to make sure that we enhance those routes, that we're doing the right thing. So that said, my recommendation to the council is that we put that, ferry landing back in place, and we make it better. And myself and the executive team, we're working diligently to come up with a plan to do so. We're working very closely with Infinity Engineering. We have a meeting set next week with DOTD to talk about the RFP process for the West Bank landing. We've already talked about adding the East Bank landing to it, and we're also going to have a simultaneous conversation about the new ferry bill. I'd like to remind everybody we received a $25 million grant earlier this year to build a new ferry boat, which is about 4 years. It's about 4 years out. But, 4 years is not a lot of time, and we want to make sure whatever we get out of this new ferry asset, we want to be looking at safety and security. We also want to be looking at building a energy efficient system that could help us to reduce our costs, because, well over 60% of our costs in that $3.9 million of annual operating losses comes from fuel. So we want to look at ways of being able to cut that down. The next item I'd like to move to is the Piano Keys. We continue to make progress, with acquiring the Piano Keys. The properties, we work very closely with all of the landowners. I think our efforts have been pretty fair. They've been pretty just. Unfortunately, we have been unable to come to an agreement with about 6 landowners in the Piano Key area. And I mean, it puts the port in a position where we have to exercise our right that's actually granted to us by the state to seek alternative legal methods to acquire those properties. And I'd just like to point out that acquiring the Piano Key area has been part of a long-term strategic plan for the port to acquire land to be able to expand the port's operations. Next item, market analysis is still underway. We're having weekly meetings. The 2022 financial audit is on track. We believe that we will be completed by the 30th of this month. And It's kind of an update from DOTD. We received a letter last week with the intent to raise the road on LA 39, the section right between St. Bernard Parish and Plaquemines Parish. Had some conversations with Reverend Edwards about that, and he has some thoughts on how we should respond to that. But that is out there, and when we received this letter, this was the first that we heard of that. Lastly, I'd like, on the projects, I'd like to talk about the water booster station. Again, it comes back to the port is really in expansion mode. And, when I look at where we could be, where we should be in 2024 is going to be somewhere around 80 million tons a year. We're at about, should be at around 50 to 53 million tons this year. In 5 years, if we build all of these projects that we're planning, we could be looking at reaching upwards of 90 million tons a year, which is huge. And so that said, we have Miss Molly Burgoyne in the audience right now. Molly, if you could just kind of stand and wave. Molly is here from DOTD. She represents the Port Priority Project, Port Priority Funding Project. So we are going to receive $5 million allocated, to start the process moving forward to bring the water booster station into play. And conceptually, as I understand, what we're going to be talking about is having a 20-inch line that's going to feed about 85 PSI, boosting water down south. And we are having conversations about the possibility of coming up with a solution to keep, I guess it's Point Lahash or Port Sulphur. I think it's one and the same, but keep that online and figure out how we can continue to leverage that with maybe some private funding, to help to enhance that water pressure even more. And I have to tell you, we're trying to schedule a meeting to come up with an assessment on if this is enough or if we need to be looking at future port priority funding requests, to build this out further, or even private funding. But we recognize that we're in a position to grow, and we have to make decisions that are consistent with making sure that we grow the right way. I recognize that water pressure is a problem in the parish, especially, on the south end of the parish. And it is something that we're taking seriously and that we're working diligently to come up with solutions to make sure that we're in a position to resolve those issues, within the next few years. The last thing that I would like to do is make an introduction. We have hired our new Director of Communications. And Christy, would you like to make the introduction?
We have Angelina Vignier. She's our new Director of Communications. Her first day is today, so y'all be nice.
Welcome aboard.
I wanted Christy to introduce Ms. Vignier because, Christy does a great job on the human resources side. And look, we have some major human resources challenges in front of us, and our hands are tied in many, many ways. But we're working diligently to grow the executive team and the port staff and the port team to keep up, with the growth. The important thing, though, about bringing Ms. McNair on board is, we know there are a lot of things that are going on that, within the parish and the port that sometimes may, not receive the best press. And what we're looking at doing is trying to make sure that we have resources in place. So when we come out of meetings like today, if there's a need to give a statement to the press, that we're proactively planning to do that, because one of our core values includes being transparent. And, I think this is going to go a long ways in helping us to kind of be a lot more transparent and a lot more timely. With that, I close my comments.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Director. We'll now open up the floor for comments. As a reminder, you have 5 minutes to give your name, address, and make your concise comments. Do we have any comments from the floor? President Hinckley.
Keith Hinckley, 112 Liberty Street, Belle Chase, Parish President. I'd like to comment on the water situation that we've got going on. And just in the last week or so, with just to kind of give a litany of projects that are going on in Belle Chase and throughout Plaquemines Parish, there is a raw water intake project that is happening pretty much right now. They're working on some infrastructure at the Belle Chase plant. Once that raw water intake plant, that improvement is done, that will bring Belle Chase up to 9 million gallons a day. We don't want to stop there. We want to, once that project is finished, we want to look for the funding and move forward to, there's another process that I'm being told that can be done, don't know exactly what it's called, but we can improve the Belle Chase station up to where we can do 12 million gallons a day. So with the booster that you're talking about right here, Mr. Tilson, we also want to take, I feel the need right now that we need to move forward with the temporary repairs at the West Point Lahash Port Sulphur facility. That right there, I'm being told, will bring us up to, within the next 2 to 3 months, to 1.5 million gallons. I believe it can be more, but we're being on the conservative side to do 1.5 million. We don't want to stop at that point right there. Once the permanent repairs to the Point Lahash, West, and Port Sulphur facilities done, that'll bring it up to 7 million gallons a day that we can produce. Again, we don't want to stop there. We want to pursue to get it up to 10 million gallons a day. Then we also need to take a look at the water line that goes through Port Sulphur. We need to find the funding to do those improvements right there, so that now we can also get some more booster stations south of the Port Sulphur and West Point Lahash facility, so that now we can boost the pressure up right there. So what I'm saying is, these are the ideas, but before I go there, like you said, we do need to get together. We need to sit down with Venture Global, on-site concrete, the methanol plant. We even need to bring IMT into the situation too, because they're forever, they've got a constant water flow in their facility to keep the coal dust down. So in the near future, very near future, we need to sit down with those facilities. And even your idea with the container port, we also need to know what is their water. Then we have the diversion that's up there. They're asking for a certain amount of water. But we need to get with these facilities. They need to be upfront with us and say, hey, we need this amount of water on a daily basis. Don't tell us you need 1 million gallons today. 3 months from now, we need 2 million. We need to know what waters we're going to have to produce, and we need to move forward with this. Now, the guys, this and Ms. McCarty, this is going to take many, many years to fulfill out throughout the future, but we have to start now to be planning for the future. So, thank y'all.
Thank you, President Hinckley. Any other comments from the floor?
Mr. Chairman, members, Donald Valet. Mr. Tilson, I think from all the town hall meetings, you all come to recognize the need for both these two ferries. And as I understand the statement you made earlier, that you're going to commit the port to building the two ferries, East and West Bank. Is that correct?
Mr. Valley, it's public comment only. It's not question and answer. So make your comments, make them succinct.
I'm trying to find out. the
And we'll
statement.
take your comments under advisement, and we will,
Mr. Chairman. Easy, guys. Do you have the funds to fund both those ferry landings? Because the time is of the essence. Can you all answer that?
again, it's not Q and A. We are working on the funding. You heard Mr. Tillison's brief. So
Sure.
again, make your comments. We'll take them in advisement. We are taking notes,
Well-
and we are considering them.
I think it's just a continuation.
Charles a question, but he can ask us questions. That's how it goes.
He can.
I didn't understand you.
You can make statements. We take them under advisement. He can ask questions. That doesn't mean we have to answer every question. Do we have the funding? I will answer for you. We're working on the funding now, as Mr. Tillison's talked about, as many grants he's working on in other venues.
I think a time of essence would be that we take some of the funds that we do have available in the fund. We have almost, I think, $7 million extra to start these ferry landings and get them underway while we're waiting to get grants. Now, my second question is, I turned in a FOIA letter, Freedom of Information request. I want to make sure you received it, and you're going to respond to it, Mr. Tilson.
We'll look and see if you received it. And if you have put in a FOIA request, we will respond. That is our responsibility to do so.
Thank you.
Clarence Brox, 156 Crossover Phoenix, Louisiana. The statement I want to make, y'all doing a good job of getting that water pressure built up on the West Bank. Put in consideration the East Bank also. We need the water pressure.
Thank you. Any other comments from the floor?
Drexel Narcisse, 17977 Highway 15, Sergeant Paul Narcisse Highway. I just want to commend the port team on the foresight as far as the parish growing and having the ferries up and running ahead of the hurricanes and all of the big business that you say that possibly could come this way. So I just want to thank y'all for having that foresight. Thank you for hearing all the complaints, for putting up with all of the fussing that we were doing at you all at the meetings. I just want to thank you for that and just hope that you guys continue to work with them and try to get this done. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any other comments?
Tell me what fussing was. It wasn't fussing. We don't consider it fussing. We consider issues.
Arthur Henry Bell Chase. Congratulations, Ms. McNeil. Hope you do a splendid job. A couple of weeks ago, we had the problem with sustainability in our I want to commend Mr. Tillerson for erecting and correcting that problem. I'm always going to come up and be for the people, always. The people always got to come first. And whatever we do here, we got to have the people in mind. And I understand the port is about commerce. Commerce is about business. But the port is under the umbrella of the Blackman Parish government. So it's for the people. I want to say to Mr. Tillerson, we have to keep, I'm for you with the railroad. I'm for you with the containers. All I wanted was an explanation so the people can see. That's all I wanted, so the people can see. And I want everybody to take notice. This was something that the people really needed. They needed to see that the direction you're taking this port. And I believe you can take it to a higher direction. I see it. I see it. I see it. Mitch, I'm with you. I'm with you with them two bills that the legislature did. Man, this is our port. We have to make it 100% successful. Ronnie, that was a president in 1980 named Ronald Reagan. I'm just going to leave you with this. He told Mr. Gorbachev from Russia, trust, but verify. I'm going to leave it like that.
Thank you, Mr. Henry. Any other comments from the floor? Okay, I'll open the comments up to the commissioners. Commissioner McCarty?
Given what has been said a moment ago, I don't know if this comment will be very popular. However, I think we need to have responsible transparency. Responsible transparency is there to protect the people in the parish and is also there to protect our vendors, our potential clients. So, I am in support of having confidentiality of the discussions that we have with potential business partners. Because if we are so transparent that we spread all of our business to the public, then we will lose clients. Yes, we will. We will lose clients because they will not trust us. And right now, we have a politically volatile situation in the legislature where they are trying to regulate.
Excuse me, Commissioner. No comments from the floor. That's over. Be reminded, be respectful. If you want to speak to the commissioners after, we'll hang out and talk to y'all one-on-one after, but please, no comments from the gallery. Commissioner McCarty.
Currently, the political environment for developing the port is such that the legislature is trying to dictate to Plaquemines Parish who might be our clients. So therefore, I think that the construction of the contract should also be considered proprietary. The construction of the contract, the content of the contract in an abstract form, which is a summary, should be public unless someone makes an official request. Because in an official request, we will know who has access to that information. And at that, it will probably be redacted because, again, we do not want to scare away our potential clients while we are developing this port. You voted for us? Trust us. There are 9 people up here. That's it. Thank you.
Commissioner Kognovich.
Yes, on permits, did anybody ever contact the Corps? Because they still advertising as LA 23 is getting the permits for the projects.
We have been in personal contact with the Corps of Engineers, including a personal meeting with Colonel Jones, and we cannot stop any private company from engaging with the United States Army Corps of Engineers. So if they continue to do it, they're not doing it with our support. We have no relationship with any permits, with LA 23.
Because they said if somebody with the port would have contacted them, they could have changed the LA 23 to Plaquemines Port.
Well, procedurally, that is correct. It's just a form, a matter of changing the name on a form. But that request would have to come from LA 23, and they would have to agree to make that change. We're not in that conversation, though.
Thank you. And then on the audit, we still doing 21, 22 audits?
That's a negative. We completed the 21 audit, and we presented that to the board back in March. So that's been complete. And we are working on the 22 audit now, and we're on track to finish that on schedule this year. We have some findings in there, some things that we're going to have to deal with, some procedural things, and it really is. We've had a long transition of having a director of finance being out, and we have a temporary stopgap with a professional services agreement, filling that role now, and we're in the process of trying to get a replacement for that director of finance.
Because I was told the one we got on contract is having problems finding anything because our last financial person, we don't know what she did?
Well, I would definitely really love to know, your source of that information, because we'd like to look into that. What I can tell you personally is, we are finding everything and we are on track to close that audit by the end of this year. And as I mentioned, we have some procedural issues that we recognize, and we recognized it in bringing the professional services agreement to the table to bring Mr. Tommy Surpass on board, was to help us to start shoring up those gaps. So we knew that. We advertised the position for Director of Finance, and we were unable to fill that position, so we went to the next best option. And now our next step, we've actually changed the position to a comptroller, and we have that position open now, and we are, looking at filling that role with the comptroller. And basically what we've done is we've taken the requirement for a CPA out, because you really don't have to have a CPA. And that just raises the bar in terms of who would qualify for the position. And we're hoping to resolve, this HR matter within the next 30 days.
All right, thank you.
You're very welcome.
Commissioner Edwards?
Yeah, thank you. I'm so glad, Charles, that you explained to the public you support the two-ferry process. I'm glad that. I had some other thing, but I want to go back to what Commissioner Patty said earlier. I think responsible transparency is what Mr. Hendry saying is just giving people a content summary. That, to me, is responsible. I just think as a governing body, we got to be able to hold ourselves accountable to the public. To me, it looked very odd to have the public standing up asking us questions, and we sitting up here like, not saying that. It to me, something just don't feel right. That don't feel like the democratic process is in place. When we get the position as a governing body where we can't answer the public question, to me, what is our purpose? We don't have to give people sensitive information, but I think in a democratic process, I think in Russia you got it better, whatever better. But for us to be here, for somebody to ask a question, and for us to say, thank you, to me that's not the democratic process. So I want to say, but I want to get back, and I think the president did an excellent job where I was at in terms of water. The only thing I would add, Mr. Hinckley, I would hope that we can get together with LNG where they can give us a specific amount of water that each one of these companies need. And not only a specific amount of water, and if we have to put in structure, that they give us money for the structure and give us the money that will cost, because we should be able to tell how much water we give them when we give them the pipe, so they can add into it. So I think what you said, and that's the question I was got, Mr. Tillotson, so I hope that you stand firm on that, because we have to stand firm on that, because not recently we have an increase for the public for water. And we don't want to need the citizens of our parish to be taxed anymore. So I hope I support you 100%. You are where I'm at, on that. But again, I think it's very important that we as a government, we need to come back and review. Because setting up here, I felt so funny when a citizen is acting a government body to answer questions and we can't answer. Something wrong with that. Now, if you all comfortable with that, that's fine. But to me, it just seemed like something wrong with it. We got to come up with something better than what's happening here.
I will add that the public comment from this part is over, but hopefully you'll have an opportunity to speak later on in the meeting on other topics, and if not, we'll make ourselves available after. I'd like to close on the, I'd like to thank you, Director Tillotson, for a good report. I'd like to thank Ms. Molly Burgoyne for attending. Thank you so much. And your help is much needed on this project. President Hinckley, thank you for your comments. And I'll add one thing that Mr. Brock brought up about the water in the East Bank. One of the things that I can see that we're doing that's a lot different is we're looking at things holistically. We have a holistic approach, the parish as a whole. Charles Tillotson constantly reminds us about that, about the impact of the ferry, the impact of water, the impact that the port's going to have on the whole system, both sides of the river. President Hinckley is doing the same thing, and us as commissioners here are clearly aware of that. So I just want to make sure that the people understand that. So with that, Kim, I'd like to move back to item number 2.
Item 2, executive session, discussion of ongoing litigation under LRS 4217A2 PPHTD versus State of Louisiana, DOTD and Plenary Infrastructure Balchase LLC, docket number C731886, Section 31, 19th Judicial District Court, Parish of East Baton Rouge, State of Louisiana, Commissioner Schultz.
I didn't hear. Second. So offered by Commissioner Schultz, seconded by Commissioner McCarty. Move to executive session.
We need to vote.
Oh, shoot. Vote. My bad. Machines are open. My bad. All right, moving to executive session as passed, 8-0.
At 3:49.
3:49. Let the record show that the commissioners are back from executive session at 4:18 PM. Kim, I'd like to move to item number 4. Oh, I'm sorry, and we adjourned with executive session where no votes or other actions were taken. Kim, let's move to item number 4, please.
Bids and advertisements. 5, introduction of ordinances and resolutions.
Kim, I'd like to move item 6F to the front. After the introductions.
Okay.
I like you.
We have 6. We have 6 under Councilmember Commissioner Champagne. An ordinance authorizing and directing Charles D. Tillotson, Executive Director of the Plaquemines Port Harbor and Terminal District, to have the port's legal counsel file a petition pursuant to the Louisiana Constitution, LARS 19-2.1 et seq., as well as all other applicable laws, and to expropriate via a taking that certain land owned by Nelvin J. Perrin III or his successors in title, which property is commonly referred to as Lot 61, totaling 15.35 acres, and with legal description of Lot 61, Point Celeste Farms Phase 2, 385 feet by 1,739.40 feet by 384.93 feet by 1,734.69 feet, with the more formal legal description of said property attached hereto as Exhibit A. An ordinance authorizing and directing Charles Tillotson, Executive Director of the Plaquemines Port Harbor and Terminal District, to have the port's legal counsel file a petition pursuant to Louisiana Constitution, LARS 19-2.1 et seq., as well as all applicable laws, and to expropriate via a taking that certain land owned by Kyle A. Fleming or the successors in title, which property is commonly referred to as Lot 58A, totaling 7.51 acres, and with the legal description of Lot 58A, Point Celeste Farm subdivision, 190-foot front on Highway 23 by 1,720.01 by 189.97 feet by 1,724.91 feet, with the more legal description of said property attached hereto as Exhibit A. An ordinance authorizing and directing Charles Tillotson, Executive Director of the Plaquemines Port Harbor and Terminal District, to have the port's legal counsel file a petition pursuant to the Louisiana Constitution, LARS 19-2.1 et seq., as well as all other applicable laws, and to expropriate via a taking that certain land owned by Carl S. and Robin M. Woodall or their successors in title, which property is commonly referred to as Lot 54, totaling 14.43 acres, and with a legal description of Lot 54, Point Celeste Farm Subdivision Phase 2, 369 feet on the right descending side of Highway 23 by 1,705.78 feet by 368.93 feet by 1,701.27 feet, with a more formal legal description of said property attached hereto as Exhibit A. An ordinance authorizing Charles Tillotson, Executive Director of the Plaquemines Port Harbor and Terminal District, to have the port's legal counsel file a petition pursuant to the Louisiana Constitution, LARS 19-2.1 et sec, as well as all other applicable laws, and to expropriate via a taking that certain property of Tuan Nguyen or their successor in title, which property is commonly referred to as lots 55 and 56, totaling 2.39 acres, with a legal description of lot 55, Point Celeste Farm subdivision, Phase 2, 354 feet front on Highway 23 by 1,710.11 feet by 353.94 feet by 1,705.78 feet, and Lot 56 Point Celeste Farms, Phase 2, 395 feet front on Highway 23 by 1,714.94 feet by 1,710.11 feet by 394.93 feet, with a more formal description of said property attached hereto as Exhibit A. An ordinance authorizing Charles Tillotson, Executive Director of the Plaquemines Port Harbor and Terminal District, to have the port's legal counsel file a petition pursuant to the Louisiana Constitution, LARS 19:2.1 et sec, as well as all other applicable laws, and to expropriate via a taking that certain land owned by Kevin M. and Melanie C. Horner or their successors in title, which property is commonly referred to as Lot 51, totaling 10.36 acres, and with a legal description of Lot 51, Point Celeste Farm subdivision number 2, 248 feet on the right descending side, right-of-way of Highway 23 by 1,685.62 feet, 1,658.62 feet by 293 feet, .78, with a more formal legal description of said property attached hereto as Exhibit A. An ordinance authorizing and directing Charles Tillotson, Executive Director of the Plaquemines Port Harbor and Terminal District, to have the port's legal counsel file a petition pursuant to Louisiana Constitution, LARS 19:2.1 et sec, as well as all other applicable laws, and to expropriate via taking that certain land owned by Norman C. Rouse or their successors in title, which property is commonly referred to as Lot 53, totaling 13.28 acres, and with a legal description of Farm Lot 53, Point Celeste Farms subdivision, PH 2, 340 front on right descending right-of-way of Highway 23, 1,701.27 feet by 339.94 feet by 1,697.11 feet, with a more formal description of said property attached hereto as Exhibit A. That is it.
All right, can we move on to item 6?
6F, a resolution authorizing Charles Tillotson, Executive Director of the Plaquemines Port Harbor and Terminal District, to execute an agreement with Sustainability Partners and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. Commissioner Champagne.
So offered. Seconded by Commissioner Newsom. I'll give a quick digest on this. It's to execute a mutually agreed upon contract between Sustainability Partners and the part as directed in the recently proposed dismissal of the declaratory judgment. And an overview of this is in March of 2021, Plaquemines Parish Part and Harbor and Terminal District entered into a cooperative agreement with Sustainability Partners to create a public-private partnership to enable a port to build an 11-mile rail extension to the planned container port. There's a concession agreement in place for $8 million for the port to develop the intellectual property and plans and obtain the permits for the rail utilizing the capital from SP. PPHTD has worked with SP to clarify and amend the agreement, and this was what Mr. Tillotson spoke of. Phases 1 and 2, where 50% of the intellectual property has been completed at a cost of $5.75 million. They're waiting the notice to proceed for phases 3 and 4 for the remaining 50% of the intellectual property at a cost of $2.25 million. The key to this amended concession agreement, which supersedes and replaces the agreement, the original agreement, is as follows. It provides a contractual vehicle to finance the 11-mile rail extension utilizing SP Capital, if we so decide to move forward. It qualifies as a concession and revenue sharing agreement that conforms to Government Accounting Standards Board 60, or GASB 60. It allows for the port to continue developing and utilizing the financial resources of SP. It allows for the appointment of a new project manager, and it allows Plaquemines Parish Port and Harbor Terminal District to take ownership of the rail line if we construct it. It clearly identifies off-ramps, a go and no-go procedure. Go being the capital, is recovered through the usage payments on a per-container basis or like metric. A no-go, PPHTD will repay on a monthly basis. Either way, Plaquemines Parish Port, Harbor, and Terminal District will own the plans and permits for the rail extension and intellectual property. This does not commit us to construction. Any comments from the floor?
Mr. Chairman, members, Donald Valley, Bill Chase. I came before you at the last meeting and suggested that you basically defer this until such time as you could release the information to the public, and they could comment upon it. It appeared after that meeting that you all, in your deliberation, decided to do such thing, and you deferred it, and then you reintroduced it so it could come before this meeting. After that meeting, Mr. Tillerson stated in the newspaper that he refused to do what you wanted. And I thought he worked for you all, not you all worked for him. And he took exception to it under revised statute 4422-1 of the Louisiana Code. We looked at that code, and there are certain exemptions that are applicable to ports within the state of Louisiana. It gives all the ports, including yourselves, the right to withhold any documents that might be into deliberation, negotiations, and would make it proprietary. However, the statute also states in there that once it gets submitted to you all for approval, it's no longer private. And I served them with a FOIA letter, Freedom of Information Request, in long length. I spoke with many attorneys. I spoke with the legislative auditors at the state, spoke to the Attorney General's office, and they all concluded with me, without opinions, that I didn't ask for one, that it was very simple. If you will read that revised statute, it's a simple act that says it's not private. It's over with once it gets submitted, and it was submitted. I don't know why you all don't want to release this thing, even though it's 1,100 pages long, and nobody really wants to read it. I doubt if any one of you all has read the entire 1,100 pages. You know, it just reeks of a Nancy Pelosi situation. Again, let's pass it, we'll read it later, and we'll tell you about it then. Well, that's not what the public wants out here. Y'all started this thing off with a new council, transparency, openness, and it looked that y'all were going that way. And all of a sudden now, y'all have got to the point of closing the doors. You can't have any dialogue. You can't discuss anything other than you give comment. Comment doesn't do what's needed to do it. The idea of public comment was to help you all, give you additional information so you can make prudent decisions on behalf of the public. This is the public's money. Y'all shouldn't forget that. Okay? Y'all act like it's yours. It's not. There's nothing that Tillerson is doing over there, and I think he's doing a pretty good job with the exception of some of these things that he and I have talked about, the budget particularly. And we want to see this thing work. But don't hide behind things. What in the world is so private in this contract that you don't want to disclose it? This was a major lawsuit from the old council. You all filed a lawsuit for declaratory judgment against these people. These people are in a lawsuit with Ville Platte, another community, on this thing. There's disputes going on there. But yet, you won't let anybody look at the document so they can have comment back to it. It's not a simple document. If you're telling me it's just this and that, it's not. 1,100 pages is not a simple document. I mean, I've been a banker, I've been a businessman, I've done things all over the world with government contracts. 1,100 pages is very unusual. I don't know that you all have looked at it yourself. You might have looked at a summary of it, what you've been told. But again, I'm going to ask you today, act upon the FOIA I asked for you. I followed the rules. I submitted and asked for it according to the law. I wish you'd look at this according to the law. I don't want to have, if it's turned down or that you all take action, I'm prepared to move forward. I mean, it's a point of interest to me that you all need to abide by the law when you represent us. If I've got to bring a cause of action and spend a lot of my money, I can afford it. Like Mitch with his boats and his toys that he's got, it's not funny with me. It's serious, Mitch. You're my councilman. I wish you'd stand up and say, give the copy to everybody. Let everybody have 30 days to look at this thing. It's not going to kill you all. And that's what you should do in everything. Be open and transparent. I appease to y'all. I don't want to be in opposite ends with you guys. I mean, look, I've known all of y'all. Some are a little longer than the others, and I've had a lot of respect for you all. I think you can do a good job for the parish. We need a lot of help down here. We need to work together. What we don't need to do is fight, and the people need to trust you. You keep saying trust with transparent. People don't trust you. You know, they hold back. I mean, it's stuff that you see, even though it's a little bit on Facebook, it's just how they perceive you all. I mean, they beat up my friend Chris. They beat up on him the other day, and he responded to it correctly. You know, we don't need these challenges going back and forth. We need a good group of men and women. Patty, you've been in business long enough. You've been there. What's so private about it? My God. I don't know what's in the document. I know there was a lawsuit before. The other contract, the previous council saw fit. 3 of the members are here. Saw fit to file suit against it. What changed between that and what's being done today? No one has addressed or discussed why you dropped the lawsuit even. And where are we going now?
Let it run.
Do I have much time left? You got a clock going on me?
Yes, well, you actually got a little more than normal, so.
Okay. Well, I was invited to come speak last meeting by the councilman yesterday, and I thanked him for that. And I can talk on and on about what y'all are doing. It's got to be private. We're trying to promote the parish. I can tell you it's marginal. Your director has made statements to the effect, if you can't get the rail and the bridge in, port's not going to work. It's not going to happen. I've been in the shipping business. I know this river backwards and forward. I've dealt with all the ports. I know, we used to own the site where they put the property over there in Violet. We looked at putting a cruise terminal down there many, many years ago on the 4 piers that we had. We looked at buying the nickel plant down there. We even looked at buying Avondale. We know the river, and we know what's needed down here. None of y'all, except Plekanovich, had been involved in the river. I appreciate y'all have a lot of experiences where you've come from, but in all fairness, you got to talk to the experts. We're looking for a market study. Y'all doing things before you get a market study. Who knows what's going to happen with the market study or plans, where we're going. I mean, we've been dicking around with this thing for 10 years, and we haven't gotten anywhere. And yet we spend a lot of money. What I'm concerned about is the money coming back to Plaquemine Parish. Right now, the way things are structured, Plaquemine Parish doesn't see much in jobs because they're not going to hire the people from here. And second, any money that comes in as a profit from this thing is going back to the port to spend more money on more land and profiteer to more landowners. And it doesn't go to the people that's in this parish. Some of that's got to be changed. Now, I supported Mr. Konovich and Carlton, when they wanted to take the ports away from the parish because they didn't have enough money. At that time, the council, the group that was running the place looked at the budget. We looked at the budget on a line item basis, and we saw that the port could afford to operate the two ferries. Marginally, it was concerned about the dollars and cents for the fuel. But now I'm hearing there's no money.
Mr. Valley, thank you for your comments. Your time has expired. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments from the floor? Any other comments from the floor? Hearing none, Commissioner. Mr. Henry.
And it's been a long time, very contentious. But like I said earlier, Mr. Tillerson, I support the railroad extension only though if the people, it belongs to the people. I don't want the companies having all the money. Let the people enjoy some of that money off that railroad. You know, that way we can pay lower taxes. The whole parish can. But let the people enjoy some of them benefits entirely.
Thank you, Mr. Henry.
Rob Forshey. Haven't seen y'all in a while. Let's go back to the previous council. So the previous council, whenever they were looking at sustainability partners and they had signed an agreement, it had nothing in the agreement about a railroad track. Nothing. Railroad wasn't even mentioned in that contract. It was voted on, it passed. That was a discussion that was had back then. I happen to have a friend that worked, maybe still works for Sustainability Partners. Haven't spoken to him in a while. He pulled me off to the side one day right here in this building and said, Rob, you and I are Masons. Let's talk about this. We can say things that most people can't say to each other. And we discussed some things. And we discussed this contract. He said, out of his mouth, y'all should file a declaratory judgment. Y'all need to file a lawsuit in order to stop this thing. It is wrong. And I am going to say, I thought that with this new council, that y'all would keep y'all's nose to the grindstone. Y'all would make sure that the people of this parish continued to be informed, and transparency is the most important thing that y'all can spawn and uphold, which I don't think that there's any at this point in time. Because since this council has come in, y'all have stopped people from talking. Y'all have stopped answering questions. Y'all no longer want to hear from the citizens that you represent in order to discuss an issue such as this or any other issue. I mean, it's been brought to another level. And that is the furthest thing from transparency that I know. I decided to come to this meeting only because of this particular subject. And it is appalling to me that y'all would even consider a vote and that y'all would sit there and talk about transparency when it's the furthest thing from what's happening. Transparency is nowhere close to what is going on in this parish at this time with this contract. Now, other things, there's some things that are being done that are good. But this is a shove it up your rear end type of thing. All of the people of this parish should be able to review a contract. This is not a design. This is not something that has proprietary items. And if it has contractors listed, that can be eliminated. But a good summary of what this is should happen, and it should be able to be discussed, digested, talked about, and then talk to your constituents and vote for your constituents. That's who you represent. You represent the constituents. It's not what you think. Nobody elected you for your brain, for what you think. They elected you for their representation. And as you promised, whenever you took the oath, that you would uphold that. And at this point in time, I'm going to say that every one of y'all that vote for this contract have lied to your constituents. And you can make all the faces you want, Ms. McCarty, but guess what? You're prime suspect. You're terrible.
Mr. Forshey, you cannot insult members of the board here.
I didn't insult them.
You're questioning their integrity and making disparaging remarks.
That's your opinion.
It is my
Not what I
opinion.
said.
Just be respectful.
You're supposed to.
Respectful to you. Just be respectful. That's not respectful. Come on.
Mr. Forshey, your time is up. Thank you.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Be respectful.
Yeah.
It's nothing. No. It don't hurt. Don't hurt to be nice.
Any other comments from the floor?
Come on.
Hearing none. Commissioner Koknovich?
Mr. Garrett, what goes on with his Freedom of Information letter?
I haven't seen it. I think that would have been handled by the port internal staff. And technically in Louisiana, we don't have a Freedom of Information Act. We have a Public Records Act. So you can ask questions, but you're not required to answer questions. You're required to produce documents that were requested, but I haven't seen it.
So with his public records request, and he asked for the documents and wasn't given it, so can we vote on it?
All right, yeah, I mean, again, they're.
I know I received the email and.
No. I don't work internally at the port, so I don't know if they have or have not received the public records request.
Thank you.
Commissioner Jurisic?
Yes, I also received an email. I don't know if it was directed to all commissioners or not, but I did receive the email. One of the things I do say is I do answer my phone, and I do talk to people when they call me, and I have an open door policy. Mr. Valet, I know we've been trying to get together, but, some things I take kindly to. Some remarks I don't take too kindly to, and you made some today.
Speak a little louder, I want to hear.
Is my mic on? Yes. All right. So what we're looking at right here is something we need to take some action on, because every time we don't, we're falling behind. And I do think when you get your paperwork, you'll sit back and you may realize, say, well, they are on the right track. As I said, I got an open door policy, and I call you back, you call me, and most everybody else I do the same with. I don't think I've left anybody out. It may be the next day, it may be, but to be, be accused of not, by somebody back there saying that we are not open, that's a lie. I've given a good portion of my time. I spent a lot of time in my office, and I'm there to answer questions, the ones I can answer. And if I can't answer them, I'll be honest with you and tell you I can't answer them. And
My call, so it's not something this was not that, this was the law. This was
So-
document
that's,
records and disclosure. And I follow the law.
It's not Q&A.
I sent it to every one of the commissioners, and I sent it to Ms. Nielsen, records,
Mr. Valet?
and I personally sent it.
You've had your time, sir. Commissioner Schultz?
Question.
So yes, I never received it. I went back after being informed that you sent it to me. I went back through all my emails, deleted, inbox, everything. I have never received it. However, I am in my office every day, normally 7:30 to about 4. I had two. I'm telling you, you can look at my phone. I have all my emails. I will let you look at my phone and I will show you I never received it. But however, I had 2 people call me about this since the last meeting, and I answered all the questions I could based on what I read of the contract. So to say we're not open, I had 2 people call me and I gave them the answers that they were looking for. And again, this even before the meeting, Mr. Henry came up and asked, and basically I gave him exactly what Charles said in his executive summary. Basically gave him, and Mr. Henry was content with that, and he said thank you. So to say we're not open, and I even tried to answer some questions on Facebook. I know that's the wrong decision, but try and answer that. But I was even trying to be transparent there. So to say we're not answering questions, I cannot speak for every council member, but to say that I am not, like I said, I'm in my office every day, 7:30 to 4 every day, and when I leave, I forward my phone to my cell phone. So anybody that calls or emails me, I will answer what I can. If I don't know, I will call Charles. You can ask Charles anytime. I call him and ask him, hey, what's the deal with this? So that's all I got to say. I have read the contract. I know what's going on. And I think Charles laid out pretty well in his executive summary of what is going on with this change. He explained all the details that he could in a short period of time. I mean, he basically went over the highlights, but he went over what has changed, what the cost is, what is going on. So that's all I yield.
Commissioner Edwards? Commissioner Edwards, you have,
Oh, no, I'm good.
Commissioner Jurisic?
Yes, I've been looking through all my emails. I remember getting it, but I cannot find it anywhere. So I don't know if it was removed or what. I know I didn't delete it, but I do remember looking. And I don't know if you texted to me or you sent it to my personal email or my government email, but it's in either one.
Commissioner Edwards?
Yeah, no, that's what I really, I didn't get the email either, so I don't know. But to me, my stuff being Spain and everywhere, the president sent me something, and after I searched and found it. So if it's there, it must be in Spain somewhere, but I didn't get it by just going to my email.
Commissioner Kognovich?
On my phone, I have my personal parish email, but he sent it to the council members, District 1 through 9. And I don't have that one on my phone.
I looked today and I didn't have it. You can mail it while I'm coming on.
Statute only requires that it be sent.
Oh, I understand. I'm not saying.
Don't.
Personally, I sent it to all the members on there. I even sent it to a lot of people. I placed it on Facebook, so they'll all be aware.
Mr. Bell, I'll tell you that public records requests will be met. You do have a right to this information, but there's nothing nefarious here. There's a process, and the process takes time. Because you send an email one day doesn't mean you're going to get the records the next day. There is a process. It has to be vetted by the port. I will tell you that my experience with Mr. Tillotson and his staff, they're very methodical, and they are going to do a fine job, and we owe you that. I acknowledge the fact you will get the records, and you will get it. But again, just to remind everyone what we're voting on here is Mr. Tillotson went back through and has worked to clarify and amend the agreement. And what we're looking at is just moving forward to finish the plans on a potential rail. That's what we're working on. I just want to remind everybody and to see whether or not the port moves forward. So we do have the people's best interests in mind. The reminder is the speed of business and the speed of government are not the same. And if we keep slowing this process down, we're going to fall behind. We're already behind. And as my colleague, Mr. Newsom, so eloquently said 2 weeks ago, the people voted us in office to trust us. We've been going through this with Mr. Tillotson. We meet weekly. We go through this plan. And I am comfortable with where we are. And again, as he stated in his brief, once we go through this and we look at the plans and he does his analysis, if it's not a smart move, we're not obligated to move forward. So I feel comfortable moving this legislation forward. I'll yield the floor to Mr. Kognovich, and we'll move to a vote. Mr. Kognovich. All right, I offer. Let's go. Open the machines are open. And the legislation passed, 6 yeas, 2 nays, 1 absent. Next item.
6, ordinances and resolutions on second reading and final passage. 6A, ordinances and public hearings pursuant to Article 6, Section 601E of the Plaquemines Parish Charter. 6A1, an ordinance authorizing Charles Tilton, Executive Director of the Plaquemines Port Harbor and Terminal District, to purchase land owned by Usam Odea and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. Commissioner Champagne.
So offered.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. LaFrance. And the digest on his support is working to finish the acquisition of the piano keys properties for the port development. The port is seeking to move forward with the purchase of Lot 59, currently owned by Mr. Hussein O'Day, for the purchase price of $270,000. Any comments from the floor? Comments from the commissioners? Machines are open. And the ordinance passes 8-0 with 1 absent. Next item.
6B, a resolution authorizing Charles Tilton, Executive Director of the Plaquemines Port Harbor and Terminal District, to enter into a per-task order agreement identified as Task Order Number 2 for project management services with respect to the Sustainability Partners SP contract with Infinity Engineering on an as-needed per-task orders basis as directed by Plaquemines Port Harbor and Terminal District Executive Director, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. Commissioner Champagne.
So offered. Seconded by Mr. Newsom. And the digest on this is Plaquemines Parish Harbor and Terminal District would like Infinity Engineering on an as-needed basis per task order number 2 to provide project management services with respect to Sustainability Partners contract. And this is for any additional unforeseen items that require some, an engineer to look at or make some assessment, miscellaneous engineering requirements. One of them could be, for instance, like a project manager for the housing issue, or to look at that, because as stated before, the port's bandwidth is stretched pretty thin. So we'd like to have a professional eye looking at this where they can be focused on it. Any comments from the floor? Comments from the commissioners? Machines open. And the ordinance passes 8-0.
No.
Whoa. I'm sorry, I couldn't see it. 7-1. Yeah, the glare's, I apologize, the glare's bad on our screens. So 7-1.
6C, a resolution authorizing Charles Tilton, Executive Director of the Plaquemines Port Harbor and Terminal District, to authorize Collin Associates LLC to advertise for a public bid for improvements to the Alliance Water Booster Station, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. Commissioner Champagne.
I offer.
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner LaFrance. And the digest on this is for Collin Associates, the engineer of record, to assist the port in upgrading the Alliance Water Booster Station. These upgrades will increase the current water pressure to accommodate for the growing industry needs. The project is fully funded by DOTD through a Port Priority Program. And the added benefit of this, it will also increase water pressure beyond the industrial needs for the low end of the parish. Any comments from the floor? Comments from the commissioners? Machines open. Oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner Edwards.
What cost is this coming to us? Who's going?
No call.
No cost, sir. Completely funded by DOTD through a Port Priority Grant Program. Machines open. And it passes 8-0. Got to write this down. Glare.
D, a resolution authorizing Charles D. Tilton, Executive Director of the Plaquemines Port Harbor and Terminal District, in accordance with the guidelines set forth by DOTD, to allow Collin Associates LLC to proceed with advertising for competitive bids to provide upgrades to the Alliance Water Booster Station and feed lines, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. Commissioner Champagne.
I offer.
Second.
It is filled in. There ain't no blanks.
Oh, yeah, we do. We have a fill in, line 68. We have a fill in the blank?
Yep.
June 22nd, 2023.
And again, the digest on this is DOT is contributing funds to the Lions Booster Station project to adhere to the guidelines as set forth by the DOTD. The resolution is necessary for Collin Associates LLC to proceed with advertising for competitive bids for upgrades to the Alliance Water Booster Station and feed lines, a port improvement project under the Port Commission Development Priority Program. Any comments from the floor?
Offer with the changes.
No. Why changes? We filled in the blanks.
We just feel like it's not changes. Doesn't. That's superfluous.
Re-offer with changes.
I'll reoffer with changes.
I'll second.
Seconded again by Commissioner LaFrance.
Okay.
Mr. Brock, you can,
Yeah, Clarence Brock, 156 Crossover Land, Phoenix, Louisiana. These booster stations, they're gonna support the lower end of Plaquemine Parish, like Bluefield, Venice, or just these plants that we putting in there?
no, that's one of the added benefits, that the water pressure will continue south.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments from the floor? Comments from the commissioners? Machines open. And the ordinance passes 8-0.
A, an ordinance to amend and as amended readopt the Plaquemines Parish Code of Ordinances, Article 2, Chapter 3, members of the Plaquemines Parish Council as the sole governing authority of the Plaquemines Parish Port Harbor and Terminal District. Conduct of business by creating Rule 17E1 and 2, and otherwise to provide with respect thereto. Commissioner Champagne.
I offer. Seconded by Commissioner Schultz. And the digest on this is simply to make sure that we get our information in an approved manner so that it can get out to the public, so we can be transparent. We want to make sure that stuff is submitted properly and in a timely manner, so we're not making the last minute changes. Any comments from the floor? From the commission? Machines open? It passes 8-0. Next item.
7, new business. 7A, introduction of resolutions wherein suspension is being sought. 8, approval of the June 8th, 2023 regular meeting minutes.
Offered by Commissioner LaFrance, seconded by Commissioner Jurisic. Machines open. And it passes 8-0.
Second.
Motion to adjourn by Commissioner Schultz, seconded by Commissioner Newsom. Machines open. And it passes 8-0. Let the record show that the meeting of the Plaquemines Parish Court Commission has ended at 5 o'clock sharp.